In this video, we're going to make use of semiotics in order to analyze how an advertisement communicates meaning. To be clear, advertisers don't use semiotics to make ads. We use semiotics as media scholars in order to analyze them. Analysts use semiotics, not advertisers. When we're using semiotics to analyze an ad, there are 5 general steps we should follow. First, we should identify the major signs that compose the text and make sure that we can explain why we think they're worth paying attention to in terms of size, position, colour, or other aspects. There's no point focusing on a small picture of an apple in the background. We're not looking for hidden meanings or taking part in the Da Vinci Code. We're trying to explain how the ad communicates, so make sure you keep it relevant. Secondly, we should state what those individual signs denote. That's pretty straightforward. Third, we should consider what those signs might connote. This is more tricky. Signs can carry many connotations, so make sure you can say what it is about your sign that leads you to value particular connotations over others. Fourth, we should then consider what the text taken as a whole denotes. Again, denotation is pretty straightforward. Fifth, and finally, we should consider what the text as a whole means. What is the ad trying to communicate through the use of signs? Now, let's try this out on an actual example. This is an ad for AXA Insurance. It's relatively simple, so it's a good place to start. We can identify the main sign here as the cat. It's orange, and so it stands out from its background. At the level of denotation, we might actually say there are 6 cats, or 1 balloon and 1 cat, and 4 terrifying cat-balloon hybrid creatures. We also have a blue and white vase on a stand on the left, which is emphasised by the line of bright cats which leads towards it. In addition, we also have a clock in the upper left and another vase on the bottom right. We've actually condensed steps 1 and 2 here because to identify the signs is to state what they denote. Remember, the signifier and signified are inseparable in practice. Having got these first steps sorted, let's now think about connotation. What does the cat connote? It's a bit tough to say. The series of different cats is quite terrifying when taken on its own. A monstrous transformation, perhaps? But provides little information for locking down a connotation at this stage. So let's turn instead to something a little bit easier, the vase. The blue and white vase is quite a common shorthand in our cultural context. It refers to something valuable, often referred to as a Ming vase. I imagine most of you already know that because that's how signification works. Importantly, I have no idea whether that's what a Ming vase actually looks like. All I know is that I'm familiar with blue and white vases being valuable. This helps us then make sense of the other connotations. The balloon could mean fun or children or a birthday, but when we read it with the vase, it becomes apparent that it means harmless or weightless. That interpretation makes sense in conjunction with a priceless vase. Notice that here we've slipped into the 5th step, because only by reading the signs together can we lock down meaning in a useful way. You'll find when you conduct a semiotic analysis that you will move between back and forth steps rather than simply going from 1 to 5. The cat to balloon signs also make much more sense when considered in relation to one another. They're not multiple cats, instead they're expressing movement. At the same time, they are also expressing a sort of transformation as well, if only a metaphorical one. The cat is becoming harmless like a balloon. In that context, it therefore makes sense that the cat is carrying a familiar connotation of chaos. In particular, I guess a form of household chaos. Now all we need to do is sort out the clock and the vase, which are really just secondary elements. Based on the other signs so far, I would confidently suggest that we can read them as signs that support the overall sense of wealth and classiness being conveyed in this image. Note though that this is an interpretation. Semiotics is an art, not a science. So we always need to be aware that we're not just applying a formula, but instead using our own reasoning and judgment to present an interpretive case. This means that we can sometimes disagree over what signs connote in particular contexts, though not usually what they denote. Also note that the meaning is dependent on the context. There's no simple one-to-one single meaning of one sign now and forever. So semiotics is not a case of looking up online what does a cat mean and being done once and for all. Instead, we need to work out what the signs mean each time in terms of their particular text. Now we have all the elements together, so we're ready to think about our final interpretation. The vase connotes wealth, the balloon harmlessness, the cat chaos, and the clock and the other vase support the general idea of wealth in the image. Taken together, we therefore have a message about the transformation of chaos into harmlessness in order to protect something precious. This makes sense then in the overall context of an insurance ad. Importantly though, I don't imagine most of you had to go through those steps in order to make sense of the ad. I'm pretty sure most of you interpreted it that way automatically. Semiotics is not about helping us to work out what things mean. It's about helping us work out how they mean. When we analyze an ad in this way, we're not doing it in order to decipher it. We're doing it in order to break it down and work out how it's doing what it does, and what meanings are being produced and used along the way. Now that we've done with our first example together, you should go to the forums and try and work through some of the examples that you find there with other students, or add your own. Feel free to introduce your own examples for analysis and to work through them with one another and other students in order to develop your skills of semiotic analysis.